mean, that did actually help. And so if you are thinking of doing something, think of your festivals after your premiere. You know, you have to do sort of like, I call it the rounds of the big documentary festivals. Definitely helped, you know, even though it wasn't a super obvious film, it was building all along with, you know, like CPH docs and all the different international documentary festivals. So that is something to think about. So it may not have been that visible, but it was gathering fans as it went through. And then in the fall of last year, Hella, the producer, called me and said, well, maybe we should do this. What do you think? Should we try for an Oscar campaign? Maybe it was actually over the summer we had this conversation, and I said, sure, like, well, let's try it. Why not? What could happen? What could go wrong? So they had no money, we had nothing, and we weren't even chosen yet as the Danish film, which did eventually help us, but at that point,
the shortlist is where the documentary branch is voting. You might have think that Sundance World Premiere, Sundance Award means a lot, and it does, but by the time when the awards campaign kicks off in the fall, there are many other festivals, many other great documentaries that are coming, you know, at other festivals, and people forget. So you need to remind them. So when we, but actually we have a trailer. So sorry, I forgot about that. But for those who didn't watch the film, let's start with a trailer. So it also will put everyone on the same track. No trailer, but I hope that for the other, because we had a lot of materials to show you today, so I hope it will. So shortlist, we call it the first phase, we call it Be Creative, because as already Sylvia mentioned, there was no US partner really to help promote the film in the US, and especially in the US it was very important to reach out to the voters. We also didn't really have all other like important festivals happening on the way, so we knew that we need to be creative. The other thing was that this film is a documentary almost entirely shot inside a school in Karabakh, you know, a school like any other, you know, not a compelling interior, of course, no stills photography, actually quite challenging, especially when you think about digital campaigns and smaller formats and, you know, such a crowded, you know, space when the visual side really matters. Then we also had a lot of these visuals with sensitive content. We call them sensitive content. It's guns. You would never put a, you know, something like that for a targeted campaign, because at the end of the day, what we do for the digital, and if you want to target industry, you need to invest in sponsored content, and the sponsored content is very much checked by many rules, especially on Meta, and then this kind of, even though it would be a perfect still and is widely used by press, it wouldn't work for the campaign. And then you have other more cinematic still photography, but at the same time for us, what we knew that even though the film has already premiered in Sundance, won an award, and there is some awareness about the film, we still need to build the identity for the film and try to translate the message of one man against the mission. So these two, for example, they don't help us, you know, we couldn't use them. Only this one actually kind of helped. It was much more symbolic. We could work with it as towards the message, one man against the system. So what we did, knowing, and also, you know, I was working a lot at Alpha Panda with the political sensitive documentaries, so we already anticipated a lot of censorship coming. And this censorship, especially on Meta, can be very, very tricky. They can block your accounts, they can block our accounts, you know, doing ads. That it can be very nasty sometimes. And you will never talk to any person. You will talk to an automat, to, you know, to some sort of a auto response thing. So there is, it's very risky. You don't want your ads being blocked. So we thought, okay, we need to work with this title, because we have a very challenging title. We have Putin in it, so, you know, to find this by bots, it is a sensitive content already, just in the title. So we thought, okay, let's try to trick the system and use the underscore. And the first, actually, we thought about, okay, let's use the asterisk, but the asterisk you cannot use for hashtags, so you think about the whole equation of other, consequences of how you will promote and how the whole campaign will look like. So even though, aesthetically an asterisk in Putin's surname would look better, we use underscore because then we could have translated it the same, use the same exactly copy for the hashtags. And then, as you can see, we were using some of these interiors of the Karabakh school, but because of a very strong title treatment, very strong color, it actually stands out among, within the very crowded digital space. So that's something that definitely helped us, and some of these events that were happening during fall, like Cinema Eye Honors, were helping. Then we had a brilliant poster that you might remember from the beginning. That was the poster. Just go back very quickly. I can't go back. It was a very sensitive asset to display on socials because we already anticipate, okay, this is a risky thing to so we actually now it works. Do you want to try? Yeah, let's see the trailer now since it works. Perfect.
Общеобразовательной школе номер 1, а также по совместительству школьный видеоурок.
Передадим большой привет, камеру.
Это кабинет, клуб демократии. Или просто создавать пространство для того, чтобы они могли быть детьми. В настоящий момент я еще понятия не имею, сколько неприятностей я создам себе в будущем.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
Ола, не здесь! Мы настолько ебанулись. Мне же поручили это все снимать. Я для них, получается, пропагандист. Я люблю свою работу, но не хочу становиться пешкой режима. Ну что вам, Евгения Владимировна, говорите, нам конечно.
Живешь в стране, не лютай ее, паразитируй, уезжай.
Я могу показать миру ту пропасть, в которую мы все катимся. Это идеальное прикрытие.
Никогда не состыгивай. Никогда. Потому что если он в голову, вы сломаетесь.
И пошли уже люди.
А еще вот здесь у меня флаг.
Я думаю, то, что ты сделал, может оказаться чем-то очень важным.
Войны выигрывает не руководство, а школьные учителя.
Right, so that's a trailer. So glad that it worked. So let's just, it doesn't work anymore. So brilliant concept, very hard, on social media, especially when you are using ads. So when we were, and of course, a trailer on digital trailers of 2 minutes. These are just too long. So we needed to cut it, but then we first worked with the poster design. So we really didn't have any other context. So how do we work with the poster? So we used your Sundance press reviews then, and created an animated poster, which is a perfect asset for social media, and also helped us to translate a sense of humor that this film has a lot. So that's one example, and of course, and then because we couldn't use the trailer, we cut a teaser. I mean, we cut two teasers. One is based on about introducing our main character, so Pasha, because again, we needed to launch this main message: one man against the system. So this is how we work with that.
Значит пропагандировать любовь к стране, а значит сказать, что ребята, у нас какие-то проблемы и нам надо о них поговорить.
So there is a message, there are emotions, everything you need to introduce the audience, the branch again, even though people that didn't see the film, to the character. And then a more proper teaser, again, using our press quotes, but also in order not to repeat the same trailer materials, we did 8 posts. That's just enough, not to spam the industry, not to, overdo the campaign, but also, very smartly placed all this information that they need to know. Having in mind, okay, I have a very political sensitive content, and this one we actually got blocked, but I still don't know, and our team doesn't know if it's because of Garry Kasparov or it's because of one word, democracy, that is being used in this material. Would you like to add anything on?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that all of the things that were challenges for Joanna were actually advantages for us on the press side. Like everything about the sort of political upset, and when the film premiered in Sundance, it was interesting because Trump was just he was just coming back into office. So it really hit quite differently at Sundance than it did as things sadly deteriorated in the United States, well, depending on your political bend, but many in the doc branch, feeling this pressure and the propaganda from our own administration in the US, it was kind of perfect timing for this film to start to rise up. So sometimes you have a film where the timing just works out. Like I'm not happy that I'm dealing with this in my own country, but the film became more and more relevant as the campaign went on. Like we just had more and more things that dovetailed with everything Pasha was dealing with in Russia, we were dealing with here. And I thought that the very first time I saw it, I thought I did recognize so much of the US in his story, but it just became more so, unfortunately. So we really used that in our storytelling to the press in the US. Now keep in mind, I'm mostly dealing with US press. We did have an excellent international publicist as well, and she was really dealing with a lot of the storytelling here in Europe, which was different. Like she had a different sort of way of telling the story of the film than I did in the US, where we were really leaning into the ways that like this will feel familiar to you. Like a lot of our press corps is very, very liberal, so we were able to kind of, push on them to cover the film because of the relevance to our own experiences.
Which actually blocked a lot of press.
Yes. Yeah, I will say the fall campaign, and this is true for any documentaries we work on or any films really that don't have a distribution plan yet in place for the US. We actually are very hampered by, we can't get a lot of traditional press coverage because there's nothing for the press to cover. We did have a presence at Doc NYC in November, so that helped us a bit. We were able to get some coverage around then, but we were really hoping that a US distributor would come on board so that we could really dial up the attention that we could get on the film. We knew a lot of press were ready to cover it. They just need a reason to cover it. If they don't have if no one can see the film, they're not going to cover it. It doesn't really matter how good it is or what your awards campaign is like. You're really limited in what you can do. So that was, we were really hoping we could get somebody on board in order to help us. And then our wish came true.
Exactly. So, when we were campaigning without a context, for the press to talk about the film, with the shortlist, definitely there was a context. And then we were really like embracing the snow globe rolls, so how it was rolling, and we were like trying to catch up with everything that started afterwards. So the first great news was that we got Kino Lorber on board.
Kino Lorber came on board. I don't know all the deal parts of it, so I don't know when those conversations started, but I know we finally got it done enough to announce it in early January, which was perfect timing because the shortlist is announced in mid-December-ish, like around December 20th. And so you have a very, very short amount of time between the shortlist being announced and when voting starts and closes. So voting only takes place for 5 days. And the nominations are announced in mid-January. So you really have like maybe 3 weeks to 4 weeks to influence people and make a difference. So it's a very, very intense time. And it happens over the Christmas holidays. So it's a full-on mad dash. I know you guys were working really hard during that time.
And didn't have Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. It's both a wonderful thing when your film makes the shortlist, and it's also terrible because you basically, you're like, you're not going to have Christmas that year. But yeah, being able to announce this for us with press was huge. It's like suddenly everything just exploded, and we got, Richard Brody wrote the most beautiful piece in the New Yorker. Like we were suddenly getting everything, that you could ever wish for as far as press coverage. So it really made a huge difference on that side.
And on our side, we started collaborating with Kino Lorber. So what we decided, we are still talking about being on the shortlist is great, but again, you are one of the 15 other titles. They might have your distributors. They are already with Netflix or Nat Geo. So you are still a little fish. So we decided within our means that we really need to keep pushing and keep working on our on the awareness for the title. And one of these was the Kino Lorber was using our assets. So the assets that we prepared that you've just seen, so the teaser, the character clip, the poster, the animated poster, they bought it, we adapted for them, for coming soon to theaters, for the launch on their platform. So that really helped the visibility on digital campaign a lot. And that's something that doesn't often happen, and even people don't think about it, how you can capitalize on something that is already there in place and built, and then just, leverage on that.
I think the Kino Lorber team was very savvy to use what had already been created because we already had a train that was moving, so instead of trying to create a new train, they got on our train and made our train better. So I think that was very smart of them. And the other thing I want to point out is I have to give a lot of credit to Lisa Schwartz and Nick Kemp at Kino Lorber because they chose a release date that when they first told it to me, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be either genius or horrifying, because our release date was, I think, the day after the nominations were announced. So I thought, well, if we're nominated, it's going to be genius. Like, it's going to be so great, and the press are going to be so excited, and we're going to get, a wonderful audience attention. But I thought, oh, if we don't get nominated, it's going to be the saddest release ever. So luckily they were very smart, and it worked out very, very well because all of our press, as opposed to like the other films. Now, I don't necessarily recommend doing this because you don't know what's going to happen. It was a big risk, but it paid off because the other films had already been out, like some of the other films had been out for months, and so their press had kind of atrophied, which is a normal part of the process. Like, you have to then keep finding things to make news about and keep having people cover the film, and it's a lot of work to keep finding those. We didn't have to do that necessarily because we had this built-in newsworthy moment because we're being released the same week that we had our nomination. So we really were very, very lucky in that sense, but also some strategy. Everything comes down to luck and strategy coming together in the perfect combination, and this is definitely the case here.
And obviously, with the shortlist, the film was then named the best documentary of the year, and we wanted to, first of all, capitalize on all these, New Year's headlines, or that what was the best of the 2025. So we definitely, and with all this like top 10, one of the best documentaries, we definitely were pushing that. Then some of the long-awaited, because these are the pieces that you work for months, and that's again like credit to Lina, the Danish PR.
Lina Bielberg is an amazing publicist based in Denmark, and she'd been on the film even before I was. So she and I worked together for, I don't know, at the end, like 18 months together.
To screenshot or use the video from the podcast, what we used. That was maybe not entirely something that I would recommend to do, but still, if you have such a brilliant piece and a podcast with Masha Gessen, which one is all, again like a very influential journalist and writer and thinker in the US, you want to use it. So this is what we created out of the podcast. That was a video podcast. You can see, even in the, it was very tricky to avoid in the whole campaign the sensitive wording, like here the fusses, also we were using underscore, and we have a big team that is working on the ads and working on the targeting in Alpha Panda, and this was one of the most demanding campaigns because in some territories we got blocked, in some we didn't. What was really striking that we got mostly blocked in Denmark for some reason, but for example India is less, and sometimes you got blocked on Instagram stories, and then you are moving your budget to post, and it's a lot of juggling. It's a very complicated structure, but through some of the tricks, like underscore, like avoiding the sensitive wording, it can still go quite smoothly even without such a content. So that was the Ezra Klein show with Masha Gessen. Then we, Pasha, who is the main character but also co-director of the film, he's a teacher. He can talk to people. He can talk about very complex things in a very simple wording. And then, at the time when he actually started going to the events and getting. This is the event of the Cinema Honors. He got the Unforgettable Honoree Award. He had this brilliant speech that I would like to share it with you now. Can you put up the sound?
Каждый день, каждый час, возможно, в эту самую секунду темные силы стараются пробить лишь скрытые границы. Но помните, что в конце концов самое главное оружие —
So this is also an example of, it's not a professionally shot, it was Helle Faber, the producer, sitting in the audience like you do right now, and she was just filming that. But, the quality didn't matter that much in this sense, but what he said was really made much more, like that was a changing thing to feature this material despite the quality. So of course we wanted to highlight all these brilliant words that Pasha said. But do you have anything to say? How was it to work with Pasha?
Yeah, well, I think frequently on documentaries like this, if you have Pasha happened to be both a co-director and the one of the participants or subjects of the film, obviously. So if you have an asset like that, it's really I've seen it over and over again with documentaries. It really makes a difference because don't forget, an Oscar campaign in my side of things is really like a political campaign. It's shaking hands and kissing babies. So if you have someone who's really dynamic and fun to be around and sort of, he has a very fun personality and really could, you could put him in a room and he could really work that room with, he always had to, and on top of a language barrier, because he didn't even speak English, so we always had to have a translator with him, but even with that, his charm always came through. He's quite a performer by nature. So if you have someone like that and you can put them in a room, they are your best asset, especially when you don't have any money. Like, we really didn't have any money in the US to do much. We were fighting against other campaigns that had much, much more money than us. So we could do an event in New York or LA and bring Pasha out, and word started to get around in the documentary community like, oh, Pasha's really fun. You should go to an event to meet him, and it's a good time. And actually the whole crew was like just a fun group of people to be around. Like at the end of the day, to get someone out of their house to go to an event, you don't want to go sort of be morose and sad. You want to go have a nice time. So, I think we really, our events were actually quite fun and people enjoyed coming to them. So just keep that in mind. It's like you may have a serious subject. I mean, obviously this is a very, very serious subject. But at the end of the day, people want to be in community with each other and having a nice time. So try and find something, to connect with each other on.
And then we had the nomination announcement. And exactly 1 week after, it was the BAFTA nomination announcement. So then we understood, all right, we were now one out of 5. And we were just trying to push even more. I mean, this is really like one of our leitmotif of the whole campaign. Let's just push even more. There was a huge job behind the strategists, the producers to fundraise, because at that moment, the stakes are much higher. So we were learning, every new week was like a new week with different budgets. So how to divide this budget, how to best also use this money, because you will have people coming and wanting to support, but also it's very important not to again overdo.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's important to note, the team was raising money this entire time. Like when I started with them in September, there was basically no money, and they kept raising money. And in fact, before you were on, in like November, I remember I got a call from one of the producers saying, we just raised a bunch of money, how are we gonna spend it? So it was constantly, we were having to shift and adjust and figure out how best to spend the money that was raised. So it wasn't like we started out at the beginning with like a super clear plan and budget. It was like we really had to build it as we flew it the whole time. And then even I mean, I think like in the day or two before the award, the actual Oscars, we were still raising money. So, it really never stopped. It was just constant, because as you go along with these things, they get more expensive. It's not like things get cheaper. They get more expensive as more people get involved. And during after we made the shortlist, like we gained the team from Kino Lorber were on board, so there were more of us. And then after we got the nomination, we gained a bunch more people. So our team kept growing. So that was also fabulous. Like, it was so helpful, but also kind of complicated, because we had to suddenly tell all these new people, like, it's like training your army up, to go out and fight the battle, the good fight. So it was a blessing, but there were still challenges.
And we at the moment of the nomination, we have changed our narration. So from the message of one man against the system, we moved into more political, because then we felt, okay, now it's the game that we play. It's exactly the thing that is making our film standing out among all other nominees. That this is a universal, universal politically relevant story. And then we also starting to experimenting with different formats, once again, to keep the campaign fresh. So at the very right moment came this beautiful national Danish award. That doesn't really matter, you know, when it comes to the US territory, but because of this naming, documentary film of the year, of course, you know, because the category, the Oscar category is exactly what you wanna, you know, people like plant the seed. Yeah, this is the documentary of the year of 2026. Then we got BAFTAs, and then that was like thought. Then I think we understood. All right, this is really getting serious, because the recognition of the BAFTA industry, UK industry, really meant a lot, and then it also gave us the platform to speak up. And at that time, as I said, the team decided, okay, now with this platform we go full political, and this was one of the first famous speeches of David.
I want to extend my greatest thanks to Mr. Nobody himself, Pavel Talanka. 2 years ago, he was a school teacher. Now he's standing here as a BAFTA winner. When a treason law threatened him with imprisonment, he kept filming. When a police car started monitoring him outside his house, he kept filming. And when he had to sacrifice his entire life in Russia to smuggle out this footage, he didn't hesitate. Thank you, Pavel, for showing me that no matter how dark things get, whether it's in Russia or the streets of Minneapolis, we always face a moral choice. No matter who we are, there is power in our actions. To quote J.R.R. Tolkien, courage is found in unlikely places. We need more Mr. Nobodies.
So that was one of the kind of winning heart speeches, and of course we wanted to use it on socials. We did, as you can see, we cut another clip, but you can tell there were a lot of sensitive content in it, you know. Street of Minneapolis, that was a time when ICE was, you know, in the streets of Minneapolis. That was like very risky topic, especially, you know, in the US territory. So we were like, but we couldn't not use it, you know. Of course we wanted to use it, so we use it as a whole like this. And then we were, okay, let's see what happens. And of course in some of the territories it got blocked, but at the same time it became viral just because of the message that David had. And it was so important, you know, and it was so also emotional and personal.
Yeah, and I think this is a good example of David worked really hard on his speeches. He did not wing it. He didn't just go up there and hope for the best. He worked a lot with Lena, especially, had been working with him for a long time on this kind of stuff. And so they worked very collaboratively to come up with this language. And if you're given a moment, how do you use it? How do you make the most of that moment? And I have to applaud David for really thinking strategically about that. Not in like it's not in a cynical way. Like it wasn't really about, at that point, getting more voters. It was really about like, I have a moment to express something that's important to me. So what am I going to do with it? And I think he did that, you know, throughout the campaign really beautifully. And it resonated very well with voters and other people, but it just happened to, like, he was still very sincere in those moments.
So we did a clip. We also did a carousel, you know, so a series of static visuals with this speech, because we found it like that's like a winning speech. So we definitely want to again capitalize on it. And then we had this amazing press still coming about the film. Also important ambassadors, not because, you know, when you are entering the third phase, everyone will vote. So it's not only your folks from documentary branch, specialized in the Eastern Europe and in the political systems, like in the Soviet Union as well. So she's a very, very influential. Then we also have like other non-documentary directors and filmmakers, you know, posting about the film. We had Agnieszka Holland, you know, doing the special interview with David, when she said, with this film, I believe in the sense of filmmaking. So why do we do films, you know. She said that and it was like, oh my God, this is such a perfect quote, you know. That's exactly what you want people to think about when. And then we had also this series of events happening in LA, and one of them was actually that was a pretty private gathering.
It was very private. It was at someone's private home, and we did not actually show the film. It was just in which you have to really follow the rules quite carefully at this point, but we just had a little bit of a symposium with a little bit of a talk, and it was actually such a successful event because it was in this beautiful space, and we had this very casual dinner, and you know, I was like sitting on the floor in front of this. There were not enough chairs, and so we were, you know, all gathered sort of like in a community. You can't assume you have their vote. Some of them maybe, you know, one of their favorite films didn't get nominated. So I said, we need to make this their favorite film. You know, so some of the doc branch had expressed to me they felt maybe like they were being ignored once we got nominated. So I really personally doubled down, especially in LA, my home, where I was inviting personally calling doc branch members saying, I had a bunch of them at that, the Nadia event that night, because most of them had already seen it, so they didn't need to see the film again. But I said, come out, come meet Pasha, come meet Nadia. You know, so I think don't ignore the doc branch, like ignore them at your own peril, because they are still gonna, I think, be very, very important during all of the phases, and even more so moving forward. So that was my big takeaway.
So how I can also build on that is that until the last moment, you are still, so even if you're nominated, you are still fighting for having the film that people cannot miss. You know, this is unmissable. This is the film that I need to check out, you know. So that's something that you constantly build until the very end.